You're listening to the Power Agent Blogcast, empowering agents to elevate their business to the next level.
Challenges are just a guide, leading you, don't run and hide. You've got the heart, you've got the drive, feel it pound, you're alive. Power Agent.
I want to start today with a bit of a hot take.
Okay.
Actually, it's more of a counterintuitive slap in the face. We're always told that success leaves clues, right? That if you want to be great, you study the people who are winning big, you look at the person on the magazine cover, the company with the skyrocketing stock price, and you say, I need to do that.
It's the standard operating procedure. We idolize the winners.
Exactly. But here is the idea I want to throw at you to kick things off. Success is actually a terrible teacher.
Oh, okay.
In fact, our source material today argues that those winning seasons, those moments where we feel, invincible, are actually where we develop our absolutely worst habits.
That is a bold way to open a deep dive, but I see where you're going with this. It's the classic confusion of brains versus a bull market.
Right. Because when everything is going right, the numbers are up, market's hot, everyone's high-fiving, you think you're a genius. You think you've got it all figured out. But this research suggests that success is like a sedative. It just lulls you into thinking you're better than you are.
And that is a very dangerous place to be.
So today we are unpacking a concept called leadership endurance. And I love this term because it's not about leadership vision or leadership charisma.
Or having the perfect morning routine.
No. It's about stamina. It's about what happens when the market turns against you, when the easy money stops, and when your team looks at you and asks, okay, what now?
It's a fascinating topic. And to guide us through it, we're looking at insights from a conversation with Mike Green. And for those who don't know, he's the CEO of Harcourts International, a massive player in real estate. But what's unique here is that this isn't some polished TED Talk.
No.
This is an unscripted, kind of raw look at longevity.
Yeah, this is the gritty stuff. This is not the highlight reel.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really deconstruct the myth that leadership is all about high energy and hype.
And just pure optimism.
Right. We're going to explore why consistency is actually structural, not motivational, and why true leaders are forged only when conditions stop cooperating.
And for you listening, whether you're leading a huge team or just leading yourself through a tough project, we're going to uncover why some people burn out while others just keep going. And spoiler alert, the answer has nothing to do with just thinking positive.
Let's jump in.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of the good market trap. The source makes this really interesting point that strong markets, or just, good times in business, compensate for weak systems.
This is critical. Imagine a rising tide.
Yeah.
When the water level is high, you can just float over all the jagged rocks on the bottom. You don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
In business, when there's momentum, it disguises the gaps.
Right. If sales are flying in the door, you don't notice that your communication is awful.
Or that you have no accountability process.
Exactly. You don't notice you haven't trained your staff properly because the customers are buying anyway.
Precisely. And the danger, as Mike Green points out, is that future leaders build their confidence during these easy times. They learn all the wrong lessons. They start believing their success is because of their brilliance, when in reality, the market is doing the heavy lifting.
It's like thinking you're a great surfer just because the waves are pushing you to shore, but you're just lying on the board.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
You develop an ego that isn't backed by skill. You think, I don't need to do the boring stuff. I don't need weekly meetings. Look at the scoreboard. We're winning.
But then the shift happens. It always does. The market softens, the momentum stops, gravity kicks in, and suddenly those optional things like coaching your team, having tough conversations, they become essential.
And that's where the fallout happens, right?
Yeah, talk about that fallout. Because the source describes this as a moment of exposure.
Well, leaders who relied on their personal charisma or their own ability to be the star player, they get exposed. The source notes, this is the moment where longevity fails for a lot of people. And it's not that they lack ability. It's that they are completely unprepared for the grind.
Because they've never had to lead through resistance before.
Exactly. They've only ever led downhill with the wind at their backs.
Which brings us to my favorite line from this entire source material. This was one of those real aha moments for me. Mike Green says, consistency is not motivational. It is structural.
It's a profound distinction, and honestly, it goes against everything we see on social media.
I think we need to let that sit for a second. We always think consistency is about willpower. You wake up, you play Eye of the Tiger, you get pumped up to do the work.
Yeah, if I just want it bad enough.
Right. But he's saying, no, that's amateur hour.
Exactly. If you rely on motivation to be consistent, you will fail, period. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings fluctuate.
Of course.
You might feel great on Tuesday and just terrible on Thursday. If your work ethic is tied to your mood, your leadership will be intermittent.
Intermittent leadership. Wow, that sounds disastrous.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it from the team's perspective. If the leader only shows up when they feel good, the team never knows who they're getting.
So when he says it's structural, what does that actually look like in practice? How do you replace motivation with structure?
It means you have a framework. You have standards that exist outside of how you feel. It's about a schedule, a set of non-negotiable actions, a system of accountability that runs whether you're inspired or not.
Uh-huh.
Mike makes the point that he has never seen a sustained effort over time fail. The problem is, most people can't sustain the effort. They don't have the structure to support it when their willpower runs out.
So practically, structure is, I do these 5 things every morning. Whether I'm happy, sad, hungover, tired, it doesn't matter.
Yes. It removes the decision. You don't wake up and ask, do I feel like prospecting today? The structure says, it is 9 a.m., therefore I prospect. You become a machine in the best way.
The source also mentions how this applies to organizations, not just individuals. It says that companies don't usually unravel because of one big, bad decision.
No, we always look for that one fatal error, but it's rarely that.
So what is it?
It's erosion. They unravel because of uneven standards. One day the leader's on everyone's case, and the next week they're checked out. That inconsistency just breeds insecurity in the team.
And let's be honest about the emotional side of this. Leading in a downturn is not fun. The source is pretty blunt. It says leading in a hard cycle is rarely inspiring in the moment.
It's not. It's repetitive. It's often thankless. You're repeating expectations. You're coaching people with low morale, and you're not getting that dopamine hit of constant wins.
Yeah, in a good market, you announce a win every day. In a tough market, a win is just surviving the week.
And it says many leaders disengage quietly here.
That's a powerful phrase, isn't it? Disengage quietly.
It is. They show up physically, they're in the office, but mentally, they've checked out because the work no longer gives them that emotional reward.
They're just hoping the market turns around.
Exactly. And that is where the battle for endurance is won or lost.
Speaking of battles, we have to talk about Mike Green's own story. Because it's easy to look at a CEO of a massive company and think, well, he just has the Midas touch.
Right, that everything he touches turns to gold.
But the source details his experience expanding Harcourts into Australia, and it sounds awful.
It was a crucible. The source describes it as soul-destroying.
Soul-destroying. That is not a word you use lightly.
No. And the context matters here. He took this successful brand from New Zealand and tried to launch it in Australia. Big pond, lots of sharks.
Right.
And he talks about how for 2 years, they just bled money. The Australian agents, they weren't interested. He faced constant rejection. Imagine doing presentation after presentation and just getting told no over and over for 700 days.
700 days of no. That is a lot of rejection. And he admits he reached a breaking point. He was done.
Quitting felt rational.
And who would blame him? If you lose money for 2 years, the smart move is usually to cut your losses.
Right. Most business schools would tell you to pivot or exit. But this is where the pivotal moment happens. He has a conversation with a friend. And the friend told him something that just changed his whole trajectory.
What do you say?
He said, when successful people hit a wall, they just push harder. Unsuccessful people hit a wall and they turn around and walk away.
Oof. That is tough love. That's not what you want to hear when you're down.
It isn't. But it triggered something in Mike. He realized he couldn't decide to be a loser.
Wow.
And I want to be clear here, the analysis says this wasn't about toxic positivity. He didn't suddenly believe everything was going to be perfect.
No, the source says it was a decision made without guarantees.
Precisely. That is the definition of leadership endurance. It's not about never doubting yourself.
Yeah.
It's about deciding that the discomfort you're feeling won't dictate your direction.
He just decided, I'm going to outlast this problem.
That's it. And obviously, it paid off. But it brings up another tension the source highlights, especially in performance-based industries. It's the paradox of the star player versus the coach.
Ah, this is a classic trap. And if you're listening and you are a high performer looking to get into management, you need to pay attention to this.
Totally. In real estate, you have these top agents. They're competitive. They have a huge sense of urgency, and they are very self-focused because that's what makes them great.
Right. I need to close this deal. I need to hit my numbers.
Exactly. It's a singular focus. But then, because they're so good, they get promoted to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, those same traits that made them rich become toxic for their team.
Because you can't lead a team if you're only thinking about your own stats.
Exactly. You end up competing with your own people. You see a team member struggling, and instead of coaching them, you just swoop in and do it yourself because it's faster.
Move over. Let me show you how it's done.
And that just kills the team's confidence. The source emphasizes that leadership requires a fundamental shift from personal outcomes to collective development.
So success is no longer about what you do.
No. It is measured by the growth of the people under you. Leaders who stay production-oriented, who are still trying to be the hero, they struggle with delegation, with patience, and ultimately, they become the bottleneck.
It's moving from being the one who scores the goals to being the one who builds the team that wins the championship.
And that's a huge ego check. True endurance comes from creating an environment where performance compounds for everyone else. It's less adrenaline, sure, but it's more sustainable.
Now, I want to pivot to something that I think hits close to home for a lot of people. Burnout. We usually think burnout comes from working too hard, right? Too many hours.
That is the common assumption. We treat burnout like a battery problem. I'm empty, I need to recharge. But the source offers a different definition that I think is so much more accurate.
Okay.
It argues that burnout isn't caused by effort alone. It's caused by effort disconnected from purpose.
Effort disconnected from purpose. So it's not the heavy lifting that breaks you. It's lifting heavy things for no reason.
Exactly. You can work 14 hours a day on a project you are passionate about and feel energized.
Yeah.
But if you spend 4 hours a day on spreadsheets nobody reads, you feel exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose sight of the why, the what becomes unbearable.
The source mentions that Mike Green actually tried to retire at one point. He stepped back, which
Yeah.
is, it's kind of fascinating because it goes against the whole life on a beach dream.
He did. He stepped away. And he found that without that meaningful engagement, success kind of lost its gravity. He wasn't happy. He realized the leisure wasn't fulfilling because there was no contribution.
He needed to be in the fight.
He needed to feel useful. The source makes a beautiful point here.
Mm.
If you are feeling burnt out, check if your work is rooted in contribution or just activity.
That is such a good diagnostic tool. If you're feeling fried, ask yourself, am I contributing or am I just busy? So let's bring this down to the ground level. We've got listeners who might be in the trenches right now. Maybe the market's tough, their project is stalled, they're feeling that grind. What's the actionable advice?
The first thing is to get back to basics. When the market reveals the truth, don't look for shortcuts. There's a tendency to try and find a hack or a magic bullet.
The boring stuff.
The boring stuff. Prospecting, relationship building, the discipline to follow up. The source says when things feel uncomfortable, it's not a sign you are failing. It's a sign the work is asking more of you.
I love that perspective shift. Discomfort isn't a red light. It's just the price of admission for the next level.
And here's the thing about results in a tough cycle. And this requires so much patience. Progress compounds quietly before it becomes visible.
Ooh, say that again. That's good.
Progress compounds quietly. Think about the bamboo tree analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You plant the seed, you water it. For 5 years, you see nothing.
Nothing.
The ground looks exactly the same. But
Yeah.
underground, that root system is spreading. Then in the 5th year, it shoots up 90 feet in 6 weeks.
But if you had stopped watering it in year 3 because you didn't see a tree, you'd have nothing.
Exactly. In business, you might be doing the right things for months, making the calls, training the team, and seeing zero change in the bottom line. It feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill.
Mm-hmm.
But under the surface, you are building capacity. You are building trust. And eventually, when that tipping point hits, you take off while everyone else is still trying to figure out what happened.
So the commitment isn't to the immediate result, it's to the process.
That's it. The source frames it as a deal. The leader commits to support and coach. The individual commits to staying disciplined, especially when it would be easier not to. That is the contract of endurance.
So as we wrap this up, what does this all mean? What's the synthesis?
I think the main takeaway is that markets or circumstances, they don't determine outcomes. They reveal them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether your organization or your career stabilizes or fractures, it depends on your focus and discipline, not on luck.
It's empowering in a way. Scary, but empowering. It means we aren't just victims of the economy.
We aren't. Where you will be a year from now isn't dictated by headlines or interest rates. It is shaped by your daily behavior, what you reinforce, what you tolerate.
And whether you show up when there is no applause.
That is the key. Showing up when there's no applause.
So here's the question we want to leave you with today. We talked about how consistency is structural, not motivational. So look at your own life, your own leadership. What structure is currently missing that is forcing you to rely solely on willpower?
That's the question. Because if you can build the structure, you can endure the storm.
And if you can endure the storm, you're the one standing when the sun comes back out. Thanks for diving in with us today.
See you next time.